that Pam Howard is on her way in. She just texted me. So I have a couple of legal announcements to read. I'm sure by the time I'm done with those, she'll be in. So today is Monday, February 22nd, 2021. It is 5:03 p.m. and I am calling into order the virtual special meeting and public hearing of the West Hartford Historic District Commission. Good evening, I am Michael Margolis, and I'd like to welcome you to tonight's virtual special meeting and public hearing. The legal notice for the public hearing and the agenda for the special meeting are available on the town's website. The legal notice for the public hearing contains the specific call-in number for those members of the public who wish to comment on any applications before the commission. Because in-person attendance at public meetings is likely to increase the risk of transmission of COVID-19, this hearing is being conducted in accordance with Governor Lamont's Executive Order number 7B. Commissioners and town staff are participating by WebEx. Members of the public can view the meeting live on West Hartford Community Television or on West Hartford Community Interactive, Comcast Channel 5, and Frontier TV's Channel 6098, or at www.whctv.org. The meeting is also being recorded for on-demand viewing, which will be available on the town's website. Because of the virtual format, there are some special rules and procedures that I need to cover before we begin. First, I ask all participants to please mute your devices when you are not speaking. If you wish to be recognized, please raise your hand and I will call on you. If you are participating via audio only or I do not call on you and the debate is ending, then please unmute your phone and let me know so that I can recognize you. Second, I would like to describe how the hand-raising process will work. Unfortunately, our conference technology does not allow us to identify individual callers by name. So when the public comment portion of the meeting begins, the moderator will randomly unmute one call-in line and ask everyone to say their name at the same time. The voice that we hear will be the person whose line is unmuted. That person will then be recognized by the moderator and asked to restate their name and provide their street address. We will repeat this process until we have unmuted every phone line. It is very important that you say your name each time you are prompted by the moderator. If the moderator unmutes a phone line and does not hear a voice after the prompt, that phone line will be removed from the conference. If you have called in and are also streaming the meeting on YouTube or watching on television, please silence your other device when you speak, otherwise there will be an echo because there is a slight delay in the television and streaming broadcast. Third, pursuant to Governor Lamont's Executive Order 7B, all speakers must state their name and title each time they speak. Fourth, because of the difficulty in tallying voice votes on a video conference, I will require that all votes be taken by roll. I will now call the roll. Full Commissioner Cormier is not present. Full Commissioner Howard. Perfect timing. I am calling the roll. Full Commissioner Howard.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Lewis.
Here.
Commissioner Tarutin.
Present.
Thank you. Full Commissioner Margolis, I am also here. Alternate Commissioner Harris.
Present.
Thank you. And alternate Commissioner Franson. I see you, Mr. Franson. Let me unmute you. Mr. Franson, are you present?
I'm present.
Thank you. I'm going to mute you back again. All right. First order of business is a certificate of appropriateness. For this vote, we will be seating 5 commissioners, which will be Margolis, Howard, Lewis, Tarutin, and Harris. Mr. Franson, as an alternate, you're welcome to contribute into the discussion, but you will not be voting. I'd like to bring on Mr. Brian Rich, who is the owner of 98 Mountain Road. We have a certificate of appropriateness in front of us for Mr. Rich for replacement of decking on his front porch. Mr. Rich, could you tell us about your project, please?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you. I am requesting, and as you'll see from the certificate, I won't belabor the point, I'm requesting a certificate of appropriateness relating to the flooring on the front porch of my property, which is a historic home on Mountain Road. And only the flooring, which is presently wooden, I'm requesting that I be allowed to install composite flooring. I do, by the way, have Dave Monaco, who would be doing this work, the contractor that would be doing the work on the line, as well as for any technical questions that might arise. But I, as I said, I'm requesting the installation of composite flooring. I've owned this property for about 8 years. I have replaced as necessary and repainted the porch, the floorboards of the porch every year. It gets a lot of sun and rain exposure. The flooring is rotting. The boards underneath, the support boards, are rotting and deteriorating. A lot of mildew damage. I would submit that the flooring to the porch is not visible from the public street. It's not visible from the public thoroughfare, as noted in the historic handbook. And the handbook does not mention anything with regard to flooring in general, even in the place where it mentions porches as my property, as the flooring would be impacted by the porch. So in short, and very brief, I would call your attention to, even to the extent that you were to determine that the flooring is visible from the street, which I think, and I submit a photo showing what I believe to be the contrary, I would call your attention to page 10, I believe, of the handbook. That says contemporary design shall not be discouraged when such alterations and additions do not destroy significant historical, architectural, or cultural materials. So even if one could accept the proposition that this flooring was visible from the street, I would submit that there is nothing about installing composite flooring on this property that would alter or destroy the historic nature of this house.
Thank you very much. I would like to, if I can, share my screen, which I hope is going to work. And this, can you all see that? I'm sharing now. So this is front view of Mr. Rich's house. He provided this this photograph to us along with his application. And what I did was I zoomed in quite a bit. Mr. Rich, do you see my cursor moving on the picture?
I do.
So, okay, please correct me if I'm wrong. Is this edge here not the front edge of the flooring on the porch?
It is.
Okay. So I believe that the flooring of the porch is indeed visible from the road.
Would you like me to respond?
Yes, please.
Well, the picture that you've noted is the picture that I took from the edge, first of all, of the front yard, Mountain Road side of the front yard, not the street, which is further away. And as your comments noted, you zoomed in rather substantially, sort of, telescopically almost, to even see the porch. So I would disagree with the notion that the flooring or the front edging is visible from the street at all. I mean, you would have to literally take, the equivalent of a pair of binoculars and or take a picture and zoom in as you did to actually see this from the street.
Okay, I I will say that I understand your point. I also actually have, no, maybe I don't. I have another picture of your house that I took a few years ago.
Oh, and this is Commissioner Lewis. I think that our purview is anything that's visible from the streetscape. But I would argue that, someone approaching a historic district property with the first thing that they're seeing being a composite material for a front porch, it's a little bit disingenuous on the spirit and intent of preservation of the historic districts. I think that, putting a composite material, I don't know about the durability. I'm not going to have that argument. I don't know. I don't have enough information whether it's more durable or not. But I do know that in speaking with other people on the preservation in the state and others on the commission, is that we found that natural wood deteriorates in a way that's distinct to natural wood. Composite is an entirely different animal. And so I think that if we go back to the spirit of using the materials, which is the main thrust of the Historic Commission, or one of the main thrusts, is that if all of a sudden we open the door on a composite material, it becomes a very slippery slope, because a lot of what we do is we say use a material that existed when the house was built, originally constructed, and all of that. And this newfangled composite material certainly wasn't there when this was built. What is this, 100-year-old house, Mr. Rich?
111-year-old house, yes.
So I'm also, this is Commissioner Margolis, so I'm also showing a view of the house that I took in September of 2017. I went through the districts and took pictures of each house. This one is from the sidewalk actually across the street from your house. And again, I mean, if I zoom in, the eye can certainly zoom in. I think it's very clear that we do see the edge of the flooring on your porch. So let me stop sharing that. I'd like to go to our historic district handbook, because Mr. Rich, your application says that you're looking for a determination that no such certificate is required, or the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness. So if I go to our handbook, and the handbook that I'm referring to is the Historic District Commission Handbook, revision of March 2016. In Part 2, Section B, number 2, it says that any alteration, removal, or addition to an existing building would require a certificate of appropriateness if the change is visible from the street. So I think we've all established that the decking is definitely visible from the street. And then I move to Section C, part number 1A and 1B, where it says guidelines for restoration and rehabilitation of existing construction. It says general replacement of original materials, reuse original materials to the greatest extent possible. Where original materials are deteriorated, use new materials in the same form and with the same method of installation as the original used. Section B, use of new materials. Do not select new materials that are out of scale, character, or otherwise present an appearance distinctly different from the original building. And Section C1B2, it's actually underlined in our handbook. Do not use new materials that are different from the original construction or were not available at the time of the building's construction. So I think that our handbook, is what we need to judge your application by, not whether we believe that new materials are lower maintenance or better for better use for your deck or anything like that.
If I could respond briefly, I agree
Please.
that these issues are governed by the handbook. I would respectfully disagree with one of your characterizations, however, because I think you may have inadvertently distorted what the handbook says. Part 2, B, as you cited, says it does not judge whether the floorboards, the floor is visible from the street, but whether the change is visible from the street. So the relevant standard is not whether you can see the porch from the street, but whether by installing composite versus wooden flooring, whether that change is visible from the street. And that change is not. I mean, of course, I don't have a before and after to demonstrate the accuracy of that statement, but I would be willing to stake the proposition on the line that if you put the wooden floorboard as it is right now, side by side with the composite floorboard, you would not be able to detect that change. And that's because the porch is at very best, barely visible from the street. But any change to it is not going to be visible to any observer. Nobody driving or walking down Mountain Road is even going to be able to tell that it's composite versus wood flooring. You know, let me just back up for a second. I greatly respect the commission's work. I respect the spirit of the handbook. This, however, is an idiosyncratic technicality. Now, I would be on the same page with you if we were talking about the railings of the porch, which I'm not proposing to change. Although I think I could make an argument that you wouldn't be able to see the changes to the railings even from the street. But I'm not fighting that battle today. I'm talking about flooring on a porch, which the handbook does not address at all. In fact, in the section of the handbook that references, which is on page 15 of my copy.
I'm sorry, you broke up. Page what, sir?
It's page 15, the numbered pages of my copy, which I believe is under part 3, section 7, porches and steps. It indicates retain porches and steps in their original form. Remember that porches and steps that were added later often reflect evolving architectural styles. They're important to the building's historical integrity. Do not strip porches of original materials or features, such as handrails, balusters, columns, brackets, or decorations of wood, metal, tile, or masonry. Now, somebody could have inserted floors, but they chose not. So in addition to all these other things, and the fact that the change is not visible from the street, there is no provision relating to flooring. And frankly, I would submit that makes perfect sense, because flooring is not integral to the architectural integrity of this house. Nobody that drives down Mountain Road or walks by my house is looking at the porch floor. They're looking at the columns and the relatively distinctive railings and maybe the rest of the house, which, by the way, also includes vinyl siding installed by a previous owner. They're not looking at whether the flooring is actual wood or composite materials. And they're not looking at it partly because it's not visible from the street. I think you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. I'd also refer to the next section B right after what you wrote, what you read, which says repair or replace deteriorated architectural features with new materials that duplicates the original as closely as possible. So I guess what I would say, Mr. Rich, is thank you for making your point. We understand where you're coming from. I'd like to open up the floor to any other commissioners who have comments or questions for Mr. Rich. Please unmute yourself and state your name before you speak.
Julie Harris. For me, Mr. Rich, the guideline which states that do not use new materials that are different from the original construction or were not available at the time of the building's construction is the paramount concern, and I disagree that the floor is not visible. I think the handbook squarely addresses the issue.
Any other commissioners have anything to add or ask? Mr. Monaco, you are Mr. Rich's builder. You've been before the commission before. I'd like to welcome you. And if you have any comments, please feel free to state them at this point.
Yes, David Monaco, DAM Carpentry. I think one thing that's unique about this project is that it's a long porch and two sides of it are exposed to weather 100%. And I'm very familiar with, I live in the West End of Hartford, and I see a lot of historic homes, and I can't find one other example of that. And that's why the composite decking would solve the problem forever, because you just don't see open porches with no cover that have tongue and groove Doug fir flooring with a full, basically open foundation underneath. You just don't see it. If anybody has an example other than Mr. Rich's house, so I think that's maybe, I'm not sure if you could take into consideration a unique circumstance, but that's all I have to add.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rich.
Yes, I would just like to add one more thing. I don't want to be repetitive, and I don't know if you have access to the picture. Maybe I already have been, but I don't know if you have access to the picture that you showed earlier. But I would challenge.
I'm sorry, excuse me. The first picture or the one that I took 4 years ago? I'll put it back on the screen.
Well, either one actually would be fine. But what I was going to say was I would challenge any commissioner to look at those photos and to tell me whether the holder, yeah, that one's actually to the left. What I was going to say is I would challenge any commissioner to tell me whether the flag holder holding the American flag visible from the street is wooden or composite. And I know Commissioner Margolis will say to me, but that's not a permanent fixture. And what I'll say to Commissioner Margolis back is that that flag has been in every picture that I've seen of this house going back at least 40 years. So I would disagree with the notion that it's not permanent. That's a plastic flag holder on the railing of the property. And I don't think they were using plastic flag holders in 1911 when this house was built. And nobody's looking at the flag holder, and nobody could tell that it's plastic and not wooden or whatever the original material holding flags was back at that point in time. So I would strongly disagree with the assertion that this is visible from the street. With all due respect, I think it's just a distortion of what the handbook says, and really just a technicality that's not supported here.
Thank you for your comments.
May
Yes, sir.
I ask a question? I think great arguments, first of all, thank you. It's interesting to listen to, but I haven't heard what kind of composite decking is being proposed here. Is it regular Trex kind of thing? Or what are you guys looking to put down there?
So, Dave, do you want to answer that? Or?
Yes, it's a composite decking. It's the same shape as the existing Doug fir flooring, and it goes down the same way, and it routes the same. It has a permanent color, and the color would be basically a gray, which would match existing, and the routed edges would act and look the same.
But correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe I haven't seen the specific decking you're planning on using. I thought that typical Doug fir tongue and groove porch is about what, 3 inches wide, and
Yes, 3
composite
1/4.
decking tends, yeah, and composite decking tends to be a lot wider,
No, no, this is
4 and a
3
half.
1/4. Mr. Rich has the samples right there.
Yeah,
You can see if he turns it to the side, you can see like where your finger is, Brian. If you give him like a side look, like a profile look,
yeah.
The
it's 3
edge.
This is quote built to replace the Doug fir, and it would
Is
be
it-
home run. It would be
Is it-
installed perpendicular to the house, the same framing and everything, and it would be
Is it-
watertight, and it wouldn't need sanding and painting, and it routes the
So-
same way, full color.
So is it tongue and groove too?
Yes. If Brian turns it the other way, you can see it's tongue and groove. Yep, on the where he's looking at the there's it's tongue and groove, and it comes in different colors.
Is it possible to see the profile? Is it too much to ask? I apologize.
You want to see the tongue and groove part? Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah, if you
Yeah, the
kinda,
profile, if it's,
I don't know how.
if you kind of lay it the other way to where your left eye is, Brian. Yeah, now spin it. Yeah, keep spinning. Okay, now you can see the front. You can see it from there. There, stop. Right there. You can see the
okay,
groove
so,
of the tongue. It's the
so
same
these
shape
are,
as Doug.
and they're installed in the same fashion, meaning that there's no joint.
It requires the same. I have to rebuild all the framing because all the framing underneath has rotted over the years. So all the framing.
No gap
has
in the
to be rebuilt.
joints.
What's that? There's no joints.
No gap in the joints. Okay.
There's no
Thank
gap
you.
in the joints, and I use all home runs because they're 20-footers and the deck is 9 foot. So I install everything perpendicular, just like the old guys did. I'm old too. Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, does anyone else have comments or questions regarding this application?
No. Carl Franson.
Yes, sir, Mr. Franson, go ahead.
I think what we're tussling here with is whether it's visible from the road. And I guess the answer is it's barely visible. And that's why it's so close here. That's pretty much what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from commissioners? Madam Moderator, do we have any members of the public on the line who would like to speak about this application?
We don't currently have anyone on the line. No.
Thank you very much. At this point, I will end the discussion of the application, and I will make a motion that the application for certificate of appropriateness 98 Mountain Road submitted by Brian Rich to install composite decking on his porch. Do I have a second?
Second.
Yes. Thank you. I have a second from Commissioner Lewis. So let's see, voting by person, Commissioner Howard.
I do not approve. Commissioner Howard.
Thank you. Commissioner Lewis.
I decline.
Commissioner Tarutin.
Given the circumstances of this project, I vote to approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Harris.
Oppose.
And Commissioner Margolis, I also oppose based on C1B2, do not use new materials that are different from the original construction. So, Mr. Rich, thank you very much. I'm sorry to tell you your application has been denied, and I will inform the building department of this by email tomorrow morning. And we thank you for your participation in the process.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome to stay on the meeting. We have a couple more orders of business, or no hard feelings at all. You're welcome to drop off as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next order of business is approval of the minutes of December 9th, 2020. I did send those minutes out to you guys. And do we have any comments? Just to note, at the December 9th meeting, Commissioner Howard, Lewis, Margolis, Tarutin, Franson, Harris, all of us were there. So any comments on the December 9th minutes? Hearing no comments, I make a motion to accept the minutes of the December 9th meeting as published on the Town of West Hartford website. I need a second, please.
I'll second.
That was Carl Franson. Thank you very much. So let's vote. Commissioner Margolis, I approve. Commissioner Howard?
I approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Lewis?
I approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Tarutin?
Approve.
Commissioner Harris?
Approve.
And Commissioner Franson?
Approve.
Perfect. So the minutes for December 9th pass. Let's see. Commissioners' concerns and comments, item number 4 on our agenda. At this time, I would like to thank former Commissioner Deb Cohen for her service on the commission. She came on in early 2015 and has served as our vice chair since 2016. Commissioner Cohen has moved out of town and resigned her position on the commission. So public thank you to her. In the same vein, I'd like to mention to all of you that we do have an opening on the commission at this point. Mr. Rich, I don't know if you're still here and listening, but we do have an opening on the commission. So if you know of someone who could be interested, not a necessity at all, but I would love someone who lives in the Buena Vista district, because we don't have a commissioner from over there. I think it would also be interesting to have an architect on the commission. Really, the only requirement is that they're interested in serving, interested in historic preservation, and live in the town. So if you know someone, either let me know or let the town clerk know, and we can move forward from there. Are there any other commissioners' comments or concerns that you'd like to bring up at this point? Hearing none, the next thing that we're tasked to do at the first meeting of the year is election of officers for 2021. Everyone has gotten an email from me, and you've all been invited to throw your name into the selection process. At this point, we have one person interested in being commissioner. That is Michael Margolis. I'm happy to continue. We have Andre Tarutin, who has said that he would be interested in becoming the vice chair since our vice chair has resigned. And Mitch Lewis says that he is happy to continue as secretary. So we do have one candidate for each position. Would anyone else like to be considered for the positions of chair, vice chair, or secretary? Hearing no further comments, I would like to propose the slate for 2021 of Michael Margolis as chairman of the commission, Andre Tarutin as vice chairman of the commission, and Mitchell Lewis as secretary of the commission. And I would like, thank you. We have a second from Mrs. Harris. Commissioner Howard?
I approve that.
Thank you. Commissioner Lewis?
I approve.
Commissioner Tarutin?
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Harris, I think I called you already. No, I called Howard. Commissioner Harris?
Approve with gratitude. Thank you all for serving.
Thank you. And Commissioner Franson?
Approve.
Okay, so we have a new slate of officers, Michael Margolis as chair, Andre Tarutin as vice chair, and Mitchell Lewis as secretary. Having no further business, it is 5:39 p.m. and I adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for your participation and support today.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
I know.
Take care.